be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
Welcome to The Health Advocates, a podcast that breaks down major health news of the week to help you make sense of it all. I'm Stephen Newmark, Chief Policy Officer at the Global Healthy Living Foundation.
And I'm Zoe Rothblatt, Director of Community Outreach at GHLF.
Our goal is to help you understand what's happening in the healthcare world to help you make informed decisions to live your best life.
And speaking of the healthcare world, today we're joined by Gaile Valcho, who's the founder and president of the Brady Valcho Autism Foundation. I had a really great conversation with her about her role in caregiving for her son who has autism, realizing there was a lack of resources in the community and how she helped fix that need, and then also her own lupus journey and what it's like to be a caregiver while managing a chronic illness.
Great. I'm looking forward to listening, and let's get into it.
Hi, Gaile. Welcome to the Health Advocates. We're so excited to have you here. Can you begin by introducing yourself to our listeners?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you this afternoon. My name's Gaile Valcho. I'm the founder and president of the Brady Valcho Autism Foundation, and I live here in Holly Springs, North Carolina, with my husband and my son, Brady.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's get into it. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Brady Valcho Foundation and kind of like what inspired you to become an advocate for the autism community?
So my son, Brady, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. Then we lived in South Florida when we received our diagnosis. And I sort of had a career at Carnival Cruise Line, and I had ramped off of that to be with him full time because in the beginning, we took Brady to 7 appointments a week. And it was a lot. But my advocacy work didn't really sort of take hold until we moved here to Holly Springs in 2016, the summer of 2016. And what I found when we moved here to our new community was there was a lot of resources that were lacking, that we had in place and that we curated for Brady in our town of Parkland, Florida, in South Florida. So when we moved here, I was really surprised that I couldn't find the same social skills groups and recreational programs and therapeutic providers that we had when we lived in Florida. So I kind of took stock of my new community, which I loved, but I took it upon myself to create the Holly Springs Autism Acceptance Day event with my husband. And also at that time, I was involved in the local running club, and there were some police officers that were also in the club with me. And one day we were on a run, and I was talking about our son and the transitional struggles he was having, moving here to a new city and a new town and a new school, and also the lack of resources. So all of this was giving Brady a really hard time. So I was explaining it to the captain at the Holly Springs Police Department. And I said, what kind of training do the police officers get specifically to children with autism? My son is now starting to elope out of the house. Luckily for me, I was a runner, so I was able to catch him. But I was worried that he was going to wander into a neighborhood and get lost. And it was very woodsy where we lived. And then maybe I wasn't going to be able to find him. So the police department really wanted to also get involved in the autism community. They just didn't know what to do. So I came up with a plan to have this big community event, free event for everybody. And I brought my plan to the chief, and he loved the idea. So the first Holly Springs Autism Acceptance Day event was born, and in 2017, and it was held at the police department outside on their grounds. And that very first one, we started with just 10 tables of resources and a food truck and a DJ and a bounce house. I got everything donated, and we opened it up to the community, not just for children who were autistic, but for any child with a neurodiverse disability and other kids in the community too. Everybody was just welcome to come because it was like a super fun day. And my husband and I were very nervous about, I was the night before. I just thought, oh gosh, it's going to be me, you, Brady, and a bunch of police officers, at this event. when it started, you could just see the cars were just parking and parents were just coming with their children and just kept coming and coming. And it really was like that movie, Field of Dreams. I don't know if you ever saw it, but that's kind of like they just kept coming and, bringing their kids. And we had just had our 8th one this past November. So for 8 years.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. And it's grown considerably. So we're very proud of it.
Congratulations. 8 years is incredible. And I'm kind of just like remarking on the fact that, you set this up to kind of look for acceptance and resources for your son and other people like your son. And then like you're talking about the night before, you were like, oh my gosh, is it just going to be us? And, you're approaching the chief and like, it's like you're also getting like the acceptance of you and like what you're standing for. So I just think, it takes so much guts to go out there and say like, I'm dealing with this. I gotta imagine other people in the community are, and I'm noticing the lack of resources. Probably, I can imagine, I guess this is my question for you, like, did people come up to you and say like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, we didn't even know these resources could exist, because sometimes like when things are lacking, that's just your normal. And you came into the situation saying like, this is abnormal. Like there's so much we could be doing.
Yeah, exactly to your point. I did it because I knew that if I was struggling to find resources, there were other families struggling to find the same resources. And at that time, Holly Springs was a place I had never heard of before I lived here, but was really growing. It was growing in size and companies were coming here, tech companies were coming to the Raleigh Triangle area. So we were getting a big influx of families from all over, all out of the country and different states. And right now, 1 in 34 kids are being diagnosed with autism. So it's really not just a question of if I'm going to meet a kid with autism, just when I'm going to meet a kid with autism. So yes, I could have just sat home and complained about it and did nothing, but I'm a New Yorker.
I can relate. Yeah.
I just saw an opportunity to develop something and to contribute to my community, both my autism community and my community where I actually live and where my son lives and goes to school, and provide for other families, not just for my child. So yes, I get parents that come up to me at every single event and says, we've met the speech pathologist that's changed my daughter's life. Or my son looks forward to this event every year and always asks, are we going to the Brady Valcho Autism event? Because it's really such a fun day. We have not just the first responders in terms of police, but we have the fire department. They come with the fire truck. We have a magician. We have a DJ, food trucks, sensory activities. So really what we're getting is just a day that you can come with your child and we accept them for who they are, what they are, and it's a judgment-free zone. It's a safe space for everybody. Parents are meeting other parents, children are dancing with other children, and it really is just an incredible 3 hours.
Yeah, I love that. I think the notion of community support is just so important when you're dealing with not just autism, but like a chronic condition, whatever you're dealing with that's impacting your life on a daily basis. It's just so important to find people that are dealing with the same thing and, be able to lean on them for support. And also fun. Like you're saying, it doesn't always have to be high stress. I'm sitting here, complaining or overwhelmed. There are people out there that are feeling similarly, and they're also feeling the good parts of it and the fun parts of it with you.
It could be a very isolating time in a family's life when your child is struggling with something like autism. I know for us in the beginning, we were in South Florida, like I had mentioned, the 7 appointments a week, the daily grind of that doesn't leave a whole lot of time to do other things. And definitely my son wasn't always in a certain place where we could socialize, or I could take him to a playground, or he wasn't always getting the invitations to the birthday parties, and the ones that we managed to go to, maybe we could do 15, 20 minutes to where he was getting overwhelmed. So that can be very isolating to a family. There were times when I just couldn't even get to Target. I'd get to the parking lot and Brady was just like, not having it today. And then I would turn right back around and go home. So the day is providing those much needed resources of therapy, schools, camps, recreational programs that are out there. And now that Brady is 17, I place transitional services, because what's going to happen for him next, right? What's in his next chapter of his life? And we've seen over the years that we're getting older parents coming with their older children, not just the real like little kids, the 4, 5, 6-year olds, but the teenagers are coming and the young adults are coming. I get autistic individuals in their 20s and 30s that come and they want to see, what transitional and independent living skills, can I go work on, and how can I go obtain a job in my community? So we've kind of made sure that those services were in place now at this last event. And, and giving the parents and the caregivers a sense of well-being and community as well.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking that as you were talking. I love how you include the whole family and caregivers. It kind of just sounds like it's an event where, all are welcome to come and use your resources, which is just so important because, I mean, there's so much caregiver burnout. And while we love to care for our loved ones, it definitely does take a toll. And I know you were also diagnosed with lupus a few years ago. So it's like you're managing your own condition plus caregiving. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that journey and how you balanced it all?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with lupus in February of 2020. So, right when the pandemic was sort of hitting the United States.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so overwhelming.
And, but I had been sick or getting sick, I'd say the year or so before that. I just didn't know what it was. And I was a marathon runner and I was running like 3, sometimes 4 half marathons a year. And like I said, I was in that running group, right? So something was happening to me. I just didn't know what it was, but it was getting to the point of intensity that I knew it was serious. And I was really starting to like getting concerned about myself when I saw some major symptoms happening to me. So within the span of that 2019 to 2020, went through, I don't know how many doctor appointments in different places, finally got my diagnosis of lupus. It really had taken a toll on me, especially in the beginning few years of my lupus diagnosis. I was very ill and probably went to the emergency room every couple of weeks. And, my husband and I were both obviously worried about, what does this mean? What is it going to mean for me down the line? Can this potentially get even worse? And Brady certainly wasn't at that point 5 years ago understanding what was happening to his mother.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like, how did you even go about having those conversations?
We didn't really know in the beginning what was happening to me until we got that definitive diagnosis. And I remember him being with me at the rheumatologist's office, and it was a snowstorm here, a crazy snowstorm. But before that, he would be at school, and the school would call me that Brady's crying today, saying, my mom's really sick. My mom's really sick. And I would just say, yeah, I hadn't been feeling well, but I'm okay. And that's all I just trying to kept reassuring him. Mom's going to be okay. And, dad's here. And I just couldn't parent the way I was parenting for obvious reasons. There was days and even weeks sometimes that I just couldn't get out of bed and was going through major testing and medications, injections, and all kinds of things at home. He was just trying to understand what had happened to my mom, who like ran like 5 days a week and was this like dynamic person volunteering on the PTA and fitness classes and all of this, to this woman who was just like in bed and now can't get up. And he certainly couldn't be with me like to the level where he was playing with me and interacting with me. I just couldn't do it at that point. So it was a lot for him to manage. And we would see some behavioral backlash from that because he just had a hard time understanding what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, at some level, it's hard for any family member to watch a loved one struggling, looking for answers, especially a kid who relies so much on their mom. Like Brady relies on you even more so than maybe other children rely on their parents. So, yeah, I can imagine how hard that is for him. But it seems like now probably you two have gone to a point where you support each other. You had mentioned in the beginning of the episode that it's the 8th year of the acceptance day. So I don't want to assume, but you seem to be feeling a little bit better than 2020 and are maybe back to some of the things that you love doing.
Yes, luckily, I started on a monthly treatment at Duke. So I go for treatments and infusions, which has been, managing my lupus. Not to say that I don't have some really rough days. I do. And Brady, now that he's 17, he has a better understanding of what mom goes through and some of the things that I just can't do. So maybe I'm not able to go to a place that we had our heart set on going on a weekend. But what I can do is kind of like snuggle in bed and watch our favorite TV show. And he's okay with that. And he's been really wonderful. A lot of times my husband will be at work, and if I'm not feeling well, my husband will say, Brady, take care of mom. Okay. Mom, are you okay? Do you need anything? Oh, I wish you'd feel better.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
He really is. And so he's gotten to a better understanding of me. And we also use the spoon theory a lot in our house.
Oh, yes, I love the spoon theory. If you want to explain it for our listeners that don't know.
So the spoon theory is something that I read about when I first got diagnosed, and it was a way that I used to explain it to some close girlfriends about where I was that particular day or where my energy was. And I certainly used to use it with Brady when he was younger. So essentially, you wake up and you have 12 spoons in a day. And so maybe doing a household task might take 2 or 3 spoons, and taking a walk might use 2 more spoons, and dropping your kids at school may use 3 more spoons. So you have to sort of manage your day by the amount of these 12 spoons. And I'll just say to him, nope, mom's out of spoons right now. And I just can't go to whatever with you right now. So he understands now. And Brady's such an analytical thinker. So that puts it in a perfect context for him. Like, I could see the 12 spoons. She's minus the 6. She's got 6 more. So he gets a really good feeling for where I am then when I use that kind of analogy.
It's true because, I mean, of course, when you really look and know someone, there are signs that there's pain and suffering, but for the most part, lupus can be an invisible illness. So it's really up to you to advocate for yourself and say something like, I don't feel well today. And like you're saying, I don't have enough spoons, because sometimes we just don't know how to tell people that we need this support and we're not getting it because it's not so obvious. So it's really important to adapt and talk about what you're going through instead of trying to keep disguising it and going through our day.
Exactly. Especially like you had said, lupus is kind of like that quote unquote invisible chronic illness where on the surface I may look okay, but inside I'm not feeling 100%. And it's hard for people to like kind of reconcile that when they're just like looking at you surface level. So I love the spoon theory and I use it quite often.
Awesome. Well, Gail, I wanted to end the interview with, when I noticed you sent over your bio, your favorite quote was from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which is, fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And I just wanted to ask, how has this quote guided you and why is it so important to you?
Well, she's like a particular hero of mine. And that quote, she has so many, but that one stands out to me as kind of like a little mantra of mine. Because yes, autism is something that I'm particularly passionate about, but I understand that others, maybe not so much. So the point of it is that to stand strong in your convictions, but not to be constantly on a platform where that's all you're doing is talking about that one subject or just talking about how it affects you and your family. I would not be doing myself a good service, nor the autism community on a whole, if I only sought to seek resources just for the benefit of my child. I'm looking at it as a broad, more of an overarching viewpoint to where this benefits my child, but it's also going to benefit your child and other children who may or may not have autism, but maybe they have something else and they can still benefit from the resources and the advocacy that I'm trying to put forward. So I try not to beat people over the head with what I'm passionate about. That tends to inspire people a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Gail, thank you for all you do. I'm so inspired by you. I really feel like we need more people like you out there. And I know we only just met, but I can really feel from the bottom of my heart that you're such a great mom to Brady. And it's just really lovely hearing about you talk to him and you're smiling this whole interview and just talking about like the beautiful life that you've built together as a family and community is really, really inspiring.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice to hear. That's my best compliment.
Of course. And, lastly, where can our listeners find out more about you and your foundation and the Awareness Day?
So we have a website. It's www.bva.foundation. They can find all the information about the next event, how to donate to help us continue our work in the autism community, our work with law enforcement, and the free trainings that we provide to first responders. And our story is on there too, and everything that they needed to know about the work that we're doing here in North Carolina.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Gail.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Wow, Zoe. Well, that was another great interview. I noticed she mentioned that she also has lupus, and that's the subject of one of our other podcasts that we're launching called Clinical Trial Talks.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you're living with lupus or a caregiver to someone with lupus, I definitely encourage you to check that out. And we'll drop a link in the show notes to our Lupus Help Center.
Well, thanks again for that great interview. And I have some bittersweet news. Unfortunately, this will be our last show with Zoe. Zoe and I started this podcast several years ago. We will continue the podcast, but Zoe is moving on to greener pastures, as they say. And I dare say, as much as I am going to enjoy continuing on with the podcast, it will not be the same without you, Zoe. Thank you for everything over these past few years. You've been such a joy to work with, and we'll talk more offline.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I mean, now I can officially say, we're podcasters. We did it. We've had a podcast for a few years. It's been awesome working with you and hearing your perspective on these issues while bringing in the patient voice. I really admire how you balance the two of, the lawyer side of you to the patient advocate side of you. And listeners, I'll always be a health advocate at heart. And Stephen, I'm excited to tune in and see where you take the podcast next.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have you back as a guest someday, right, Zoe?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Your expertise as a true health policy professional and greater health advocate than you could ever have imagined.
Yeah, I'm always around for this group.
All right, excellent. Well, we'll see you soon. Let's say it like that.
And listeners, for the last time, thanks for listening to The Health Advocates, a podcast that breaks down major health news of the week to help you make sense of it all. If you like this episode, give us a rating, write a review, and hit that subscribe button wherever you listen. I'm Zoe Rothblatt.
I'm Stephen Newmark. We'll see you next time.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation Podcast Network.